Welcome to another episode of Before You Kill Yourself with your host, Leo Flowers. I am Leo Flowers. Today's guest is comedian extraordinaire, Colton Harpie. Today, we're going to talk about why it's so important to set boundaries in your relationships, how to train your mind so that you can quiet the mind and reduce anxiety, why there's no such thing as good or bad experiences. Everything is just neutral. We also get into what he learned from cognitive behavioral therapy that helped him to reduce his anxiety and how to set boundaries in our relationships. We talk about so much more. We even get into how weed affects his anxiety and why he stopped drinking caffeine. Remember, if there's any information in this episode that you find valuable, effective, applicable, share it with 1 to 2 of your friends. Share it with an enemy. Thank you also for rating it 5 stars and leaving reviews. I also appreciate the messages that I receive from each and every single one of you. You can message me directly at leoflowers2000 at gmail. And if you want one-on-one coaching, you can go to thrivewithleo.com to work with yours truly. With that said, let's hop into the episode. Now, are you like me? And there's a part of me that's slightly addicted to chaos, because you talked about the chaos of just people popping in and, the randomness of it all. Do you find that? Is that a part of you?
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Eric Andre and Tom Green and Sacha Baron Cohen when he had the Ali G show. And dude, that's my humor. Like I just love that. Back in the day when before even Jackass, I used to watch CKY. And it was just pure chaos. It's like, for me, if I could do a show like Tim and Eric Andre's show, where it's just random chaos, for some reason I get like giddy inside. It's just so fun to me. And especially when no one else knows what's going on, like it's a lot of fun.
Did you grow up in a chaotic household? Were you moving around a lot? A lot of siblings?
It randomly became chaos. My parents split when I was like 9 or 10. I don't know if that directly has anything to do with it, but I do know it was around that time that, yeah, I guess like in my teenage years, I kind of got into like my style of what I found was funny, my humor, and a big part of it growing up was like CKY and Jackass and stuff like that.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy those shows. It's so funny. I was scrolling through Netflix and I saw Jackass 3.5, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I need to see the new one." I mean, the trailer was already too much. I was like, I think you showed all the best bits in the trailer for the new Jackass. Did with your parents splitting up, did you find that like humor was a way of dealing with that, or were you already kind of the fun, goofy, cracking jokes and random kind of kid?
Yeah, dude, I was always like that kid just wanting to have fun. It's so funny because I wanted to be like my older brothers. My older brothers, and they were always like the ones that made the family laugh, the friends laugh. So I wanted to be cool like them. I wanted to be part of that group in like the neighborhood growing up and stuff. And the way to do that was to like be funny. Um, but as far as dealing with it, again, I mean, maybe in the time I did that, but I wasn't even aware of that. It's not till when you're older, you're like, oh, I was doing that because I was messed up, and we can go on about that forever. I got a whole list of issues wrong with me. So
Yeah, because I see that you're pretty yoked, and I was scrolling through your Instagram feed, and clearly you make working out and taking care of yourself and eating right a priority. What was that fed by your older siblings? Were they into it also, or were they nerds and you found that this was a path for you to stand out?
So growing up, my sister, so I have 3 siblings. They're all older than me, my sister, and then my 2 brothers. And my sister was actually the one into working out. Ever since she was young, she was into working out. And when I was like 14-ish, yeah, she really motivated me to go to the gym. But also at that time, I was big into pro wrestling, and I wanted to be a WWF at the time, now WWE wrestler. Or I think they're called like superstars now. I don't even know what they're at this point. But man, like that motivated me. I wanted to be like, I went from wanting to play basketball and be Michael Jordan to wanting to be like The Rock and Stone Cold. And like, that was my goal. And so I got into working out, and yeah, man, it's been something part of my life. And, we can go into more detail about it as we go on, but definitely it's something that not only do I do for the physical benefits, but the mental aspect of it is just so huge, just huge part of my life.
When your parents divorced, which parent did you go with, and was that a smooth transition, or was there kind of a custody battle back and forth?
I went with my mom, but yeah, there was like kind of it got like pretty nasty with custody and stuff like that. And it was weird at that time too, because I was seeing a side of my family. I feel like growing up, everyone's got their issues, but everyone tries to like hide stuff from their kids, growing up. And it was literally like a switch that just kind of flipped, man. And it was weird because I was seeing a side of both my mom and my dad that I had never seen before, especially when they started like talking about each other. I felt like I grew up like 5 years, like I said, it happened when I was like 9 or 10. I felt like I jumped to like 15, and it was weird because I felt like, like I said, your parents are talking to you one day and they're like, oh, school and this and that. And then they're talking to you about, like real stuff. Not that school's not real stuff, but like real stuff as far as like, oh, me and your dad aren't doing well and stuff like that. And you're like, well, where's this coming from? So it's a very, very weird wake up call. But on like the positive side of it, dude, that stuff made me, like all this stuff, all these weird things that happened in my life, that made me who I am, and made me more understanding of other people. Because if I grew up in this world of, parents are still together and living in a nice neighborhood, who knows if I'd be doing comedy? Honestly, I don't know if I would have chosen that as like the career path that I want to take and to follow like my dream. I might have fallen into, and I'm not saying it's bad, but the 9 to 5, that most people, especially living in Connecticut, that's what they do. So
I see you have a Mortal Kombat video game.
oh, dude.
Talk to me
Yeah.
about this. Is that because that takes me back to my childhood and college years.
I got so my goal is to own all 4 like full on arcades. So this one, if you could see, this is the Arcade 1-Up version. So Arcade 1-Up is a company, and they make replicas of full blown arcades. So I'd say it's about like with the riser, it's about like, well, the mic came out of nowhere. About like 5 feet tall. But ever since I was little, Mortal Kombat has been one of those games that I've played literally through Sega Genesis all the way up into the new systems. And yeah, man, I always wanted to own like the arcade version ever since I was little. I thought that it would be so cool to have in like my bedroom. And as I get older, I'm like, dude, I want the like the huge ones, but those things weigh like thousands of pounds and they're so clunky and big. So for now, this is good. But yeah, my goal, man, is to have literally MK 1, 2, 3, and 4 in a row. And like, that would be, I would love that.
Is that one of your ways? Because I know that, when I was reading through the bio that, anxiety is something that you struggled with. Was video games and, doing sketches, were those ways for you to manage the anxiety? And in what ways did that show up for you as a kid, anxiety?
So I definitely think playing with my friends in the sketches for sure was a way to get it out. I think starting from being young, super early, I didn't know what that was. I always thought the anxiety was like excitement, which I think it was. As a kid, you're very excited, but then as you get older, that morphs into, social anxiety. I know a lot of people have the fear of the public speaking and all that, which, as you go into middle school and high school, you have to do those presentations and, the teachers calling you out and stuff like that. So, um, being young again, I think it was an excitement and then it kind of morphed into the anxiety. And as I got older, public speaking was something that I would always shy away from. I was the kid in class that the teacher would call on, and even if I was paying attention, my face would start turning red, flush face, and getting uncomfortable, sweaty palms. And I remember towards the end of high school, really, really having very bad anxiety. And I think part of that was the uncertainty of college and stuff like that, what I really wanted to do with my life. Part of it was not knowing if my friends were going to be in my life anymore, through the graduating of high school. And then the other part of it too was just carrying this load of anxiety that kind of built up from middle school into high school. And a big part of it, which many people enjoy in high school, smoking weed and drinking and stuff like that. But it was weird for me, dude, because when I went from middle school to high school, at first I didn't want to take part in any of that stuff. I was the kid that wanted to have the video game parties and all that type of stuff. And then when everyone's going to these parties where everyone's just smoking weed and drinking, I'm like, what the hell is this? And so it was a big change for me. And I think that looking back now added to the anxiety as well, because you want to be with your friends, you want to be part of the group that you were with. And then when it's shifting to something else, which you don't really want to take part in, you're like, what is this? What's this all about? And then again, specifically going to the whole thing about like weed, I learned in high school at a very young age that I don't enjoy weed at all. For some reason, it triggers like terrible panic attacks within me. And so in high school was one of my first ever like real full blown panic attacks. And it was the weirdest thing because I had never experienced that before. And so I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who to go to. I didn't know like what to even make of it. I just knew that smoking triggered that. And now as an adult, I shy away from it, which is weird again, because living in a state like California, with dispensaries and all that type of stuff, it's just kind of like the normal thing now. But for me, I can't do that. I can't at all. The anxiety is so bad when I smoke.
Same for me. I remember I went hiking with some friends and I smoked a little bit and I was going bananas. And I was like, how is this pleasurable to anyone? Now, granted, I probably did a lot more than I should have on my first time, but I was just like, no, this. And then the hangover the next day, like I just felt groggy and unclear and I felt heavy, and I was like, oh, this is horrendous right now. I don't enjoy any of this. But but you bring up a good point in that not only does weed and alcohol affect people differently, but the same goes for prescribed medication, whether you're on Prozac or Adderall or Ativan or and whatever you're taking. But even foods, like my girlfriend can't eat garlic because that it causes her to bloat. But if you look on a list of healthy foods, garlic would be a healthy thing. So it's all about. It always comes back to listening to your body and seeing how it responds to whatever stimulus that you're exposing it to, whether it's internally or externally. Have you had any health issues up? Well, first of all, how old are you, Colton?
33. I had to think about that.
Yeah, you did. See that's how little weed you should smoke. That's why you should not. The fact
Like,
that you had
this
to
guy's
think
high
about
all the time. Who's he fooling? This guy's high right now.
I was like, either he has a poor memory, he thinks I'm the feds or something. Like this is some Russian covert. the And so at 33, I'm sure you're discovering things that may be healthy for other people, but may not be healthy for you. Have you discovered that in terms of food and nutrition or exercise or sleep or anything?
Yeah, 100%, man. I growing up through my 20s, I still had anxiety, which to this day, I'll just say it up front, I still have anxiety, but it's something that I've learned to totally manage and deal with through exercise and diet and meditating and all sorts of different stuff that I've gotten into. But it wasn't until literally my 30s that I realized what to do and what not to do for myself. Growing up, I had food allergies, and I think that played a role. Looking back, I know I keep going back and forth, but as a kid, I think that played a big role in my anxiety because I'm deathly allergic to nuts. And so as a kid, when someone's like, oh, my parents, this can kill you, that creates an anxiety because then you're like, okay, well, it doesn't kill other people, but I have to avoid it. And I remember growing up having many anaphylactic reactions where I had to go into the emergency room, use the EpiPen, all that. Even in high school, I had a couple of them. They used the same knife to cut the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches as they did the regular sandwiches, and all sorts of crazy stuff like that, dude. It's so I feel like I'm answering my own questions. Like, why are you fucked up? Well, this is why. But so now, as far as like even diet goes, I'm very strict, not only due to the fitness, but just due to my allergen restrictions and psychologically. I know if I'm eating crap, it's going to make me feel bad. And dude, I'm to the point where I'll spend the extra money for the grass-fed protein. I won't get meats that, are cheap. And even like eggs and stuff like that, I'm going with the eggs that are soy-free, farm raised, free range, all that stuff, because even just looking at it, like when you actually take the time to look at this stuff, the cheap egg yolk has like a white yellow color to it, whereas the ones that are free range and are on a good diet has like a golden yellow yolk. And that's like what an egg should look like and what we should be eating as human beings, not processed crap. Another big part of it is caffeine. I don't drink coffee. I don't take pre-workout. It sounds crazy to most people, and I really have to motivate myself to get going, to go to the gym, because 9 times out of 10, I don't want to be there. But then I hit the Stairmaster for like a solid 10 minutes, get a sweat going, get a burn going, and then I go into my workout. But, just for years, I was taking pre-workout and caffeine tabs and drinking coffee. And again, looking back to the anxiety, it's like, why did I have so much anxiety? Well, that in itself too, you're just taking so much stimulants. So for anyone listening to this that, just on a basic physical level is taking in large amounts of caffeine, not eating well, not sleeping well, not being physically active, doesn't need to be at the gym, but not being physically active at all, being sedentary, dude, these things are going to make you feel like crap. And if you struggle with anxiety or you have any anxiety at all, this is going to peak it because, it took, like I said, it took me my 20s of figuring this out. But now I feel like I have it down where I know what to do and why I don't feel well. It's either a lack of sleep, it's eating like crap, it's not getting a workout in, even not drinking enough water, or, having some sort of stimulant. I mean, there are days randomly, but where I'm just dragging ass and I'm like, dude, I need like a green tea or a black tea or a drink a small amount of coffee. But my body's so sensitive now because I don't have that stuff, that when I do have it, I feel it right away. And I guess that's good. So I'm not spending a lot of money on stuff, but at the same time, it also is good because it shows like how clean my stuff is. Like, dude, I can't afford to Like if I, for example, if I drank a coffee, didn't work out, and then went to go perform, dude, my set would be all over the place. I'd be so anxious being on stage. It'd be all over the place.
Tell me more about the sleep because I truly believe that sleep is the foundation of mental health because a good night's sleep is indicative of how use our day. You know, like if we work out, do we get sunlight, how we ate, like everything about your day culminates into how we sleep. And I understand that there's, PTSD or in the case I was talking to a friend of mine and she can't sleep because her partner snores. And so that prevents her from getting into a deep sleep. And I know there are a lot of people out there who struggle with that. What's your sleep routine?
Um, Number one that I realized this past year is do not be, and this is just me I'm speaking for, do not be on the phone anywhere before bedtime. And for me, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours before bedtime. If you're on your phone, make sure it's something not related to like anything that's going to evoke an emotion. So no social media, no emails. Let that stuff wait until tomorrow unless it's an emergency. I had a bad habit of going in bed and then scrolling either on Instagram or TikTok. And every time you scroll, and I'm referring to myself, that's evoking an emotion. You see someone that you're jealous of, you see someone that's got more money than you see someone that's doing better than you see someone that's attractive. All these things are evoking an emotion. And that's not good to have the mind and emotions all over the place right before you're supposed to be at the most calm physical and mental state before you go to sleep. So the phone thing is big. And then also to for me, eating a big meal before bed, especially like red meats and stuff like that. I cannot eat a big meal before bed, even if I didn't get one in. Um, I try to have like a protein shake or something that if I'm hungry, I'm still eating, but it's not very big. Because if you're eating a big meal, and again, red meats, especially before bed, it's gonna keep you up. My body temperature for some reason is very high. My girlfriend says that all the time. She's freezing cold, and I'm like a furnace, dude. Like I'm just always hot. And the diet and the eating before bed is a big part of that. Um, Also, too, if you're going back to the phone, if you're going to be on your phone, like do something pleasant, do something simple. Read like a book, listen to an audible book that's going to be stimulating and positive, and don't and again, relating to me personally, don't watch like a murder mystery. Something that you're going to feel like on edge. My girlfriend constantly is like, oh my God, I slept like shit last night. I was so scared. I'm like, of what? And she watched some murder thing. And I'm like, dude, why are you watching this right before bed? Like, who in their right mind reads an article about like people getting massacred and murdered and is like, good night. It's just so ridiculous. But that's I feel like so many people are just drawn to that, and it's so easy to be sucked into that. Um, but you can't do that for sleep, man. And also, too, if anyone listening drinks coffee or takes pre-workout, make sure how close that is before your bedtime or when you go to sleep, because that can keep you up for a long time. And throughout my whole 20s, found that out the wrong way. I would be jacked up the whole night, wake up exhausted, and then need to take that caffeine to just get back to a baseline of functioning.
Well, because I know that you went from Connecticut and then took your comedy ambitions to New York. And, that's a city that really never sleeps. And, if you're really in with the clubs, you could be up till 2 a.m. doing comedy. How does doing stand up, which is a nighttime gig, which can keep you up late, how do you balance that with your sleep routine?
Just being patient with myself and knowing that I'm gonna need to sleep an extra hour or two if I can. If you can't, then it's something that you just have to accept, and knowing going into the following day that it might be a little difficult. And again, going back to that whole like patient thing with yourself, not getting upset because you're tired. If you do a workout, doing an altered workout, if you're doing a task or a job or something like that, just reminding yourself, okay, I didn't get the amount of sleep that I did the previous night when I wasn't out late. Um, and just, yeah, again, be patient with yourself, because dude, that's the thing, is like, I'm not a nighttime person, and it sounds so weird because, as comics, we have to be out very late sometimes. And it's just that balance, it's just knowing that, okay, the next night I can, or training yourself to, I would almost consider it like going into battle. For the longest time when I was doing these open mics and I'd be out very late, I was just reminding myself that I was training my mind to just be okay with that, and just know that, like, okay, this is going to be temporary with this, but the schedule will shift, and just being okay with it. I think when you're not okay with it and you fight it, and you're like, oh damn it, I didn't get enough sleep, and you get angry at it, that makes it so much worse. I'm not saying that you're not going to be tired, but you have to just be okay with being tired and acknowledge why you're tired, because you didn't get enough sleep. I'm not saying that it's good, and you should be doing that, but you have to be understanding of the situation.
Man, that's so empowering. And I love that message of one, being compassionate towards yourself and recognizing that it's unrealistic to expect that you're always going to get a great night's sleep. Like life just doesn't work like that. I mean, there's so many reasons why we don't sleep through the night. Whether it's maybe we drank water a little too close to bed, or allergies. I know allergies for a lot of people will wake them up, and even age. As we get older, I'm 46, and I know that once we get in our 40s, but especially 50s and 60s. Um, People, especially men, for some reason wake up at 4 a.m. They just naturally wake up at 4 a.m. and it's some hormonal, genetic thing that happens. So age, stress, all these different things can kids if
Yeah.
you have kids, but and even travel, if you've been traveling, jet lag, that I'm so glad that they stopped that daylight savings time
Is that
because
done totally?
I think it's done. Don't
Okay.
quote me on that. I'd be confident if we weren't recording, but because we're recording, I'm not too confident. So Google it, people, and find out what the status is. Don't quote your boy Leo Flowers. Um, but yeah, and like you said, to have that patience to recognize, what, I only got a few hours sleep last night, so I'm not going to see the gains or that I expected to see today. Because the thing is, we have this expectation, Colton, of every day we should get better. If I was benching 200 pounds today, I should be benching 210 pounds tomorrow. Or if I weigh 200 pounds today, then depending on what your goals are, I should weigh more or less tomorrow. And sometimes we're going to stagnate, and sometimes we're going to go in the opposite direction, and that's just like you talked about, the law of averages. Nothing progresses uh, on a straight line in the direction that you want it to. It's going to be a few ups and downs.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I listen to so many people constantly. I'm always listening. Most people listen to music at the gym, but I'm honestly either listening to like a motivational speech or like something other, even sometimes as far as listening to like meditation music. I know some people would say that's crazy, but just to like drown out the noise. And I'm big into, David Goggins, and, just embracing stuff that sucks. And you really do have to train your mind. He's big on training your mind. And, when I said going into battle, that's one of his terms, like, in your mind going into battle, and preparing yourself for life, because life can and is a beautiful thing, but at the same time, it could be hell and it could be a terrible thing. And it's all how you view things, because I'm big into like spiritual stuff, and within spirituality, a lot of different practices, they say everything is neutral until you assign it meaning. And most things are when you view it that way, because you are the person judging it, you're the person determining how you feel about it. It's your world and your reality. So when everything's neutral, just take a person for example. I could like a person, you could hate a person, but that person's neutral. We just have different feelings about that person. And going back to these people, man, I'm always trying to myself better myself, but be patient and honest with myself. And these people like David Goggins, I listen to Joe Rogan all the time. He has so many great clips that people chop up from his podcast. um Will Smith, I love listening to Will Smith. I know he's got a great book out there, and I've heard like pieces of it, but I haven't had the time to listen to his book, the Audible book of that. But just all these people just talk about, just disciplining yourself. And especially Will Smith has a quote, discipline is self-love. And I love that quote, because it is like when you discipline yourself and you're uh, structured, that's when you can deal with life. It's when you don't have discipline and you're kind of all over the place. The little things add up, and something that really isn't a big deal turns into a catastrophic problem because you're not prepared. But on the flip side of it, there's a fine line with it, because again, there has to be that patience and love for yourself. And so with the discipline and the hard work, you also have to, on a fine line, be caring for yourself, loving to yourself, understanding of yourself. And it can't just be this like go, 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 no, you got to do it mentality. It also has to be a little bit of, okay, well, obviously you feel this way because you didn't get enough sleep. Obviously you feel this way because so and so just passed away in your family, or this just happened, or that happened. So it's being realistic and compassionate and loving to yourself, but also kicking your own ass, being motivated, and staying driven.
How have you handled, speaking of staying driven? Because, a big thing for a lot of my listeners who are perfectionists, they want to get everything right. And when things go wrong, or when they feel like they quote unquote failed, um, it's a struggle. It's a struggle to get back on task. It's a struggle not to take things personally. What can you describe for us, like what your biggest loss was outside of the divorce, and not to call that your loss, but what you felt like your biggest loss was, and how did you recover or reframe that?
I'd say my biggest losses were failed relationships, with girls that I've dated, because in these relationships, uh, they were terrible. It made me not want to do what I wanted to do. I wasn't myself. Um, I mean, there was my a past relationship where like I wasn't performing, I wasn't going to the gym as much as I wanted to, I wasn't eating because I was always stressed out. Um, and so after the relationship ends and it's gone and done, you feel like a failure, because it's like, well, what was all that for? I just, the first thing people say is I just wasted. That term always comes up. I just wasted 6 months. I just wasted 3 years of my life. Some people are married and have kids, and they're like, in their mind, I just wasted half my life. And this person doesn't want to be with me, or I don't want to be with them. Now that term failure comes up, but none of this is a failure, because it's an experience. And you have to know what you don't want to know what you do want. That's the key part to all this stuff. If you just constantly get what you want, get what you want, get what you want, and you're always quote unquote succeeding and winning, going back to that part about messing up and failure and stuff being catastrophic with problems, you're not going to know how to deal with anything. So it's these failures and these mess ups and these failed, relationships or whatever it is, that teach you, because through knowing what you don't want, you figure out what you do want, and then you make better decisions, you better yourself, and you see, especially, and I could speak from relationships in this aspect, you see red flags. Okay, if this is coming on quick, stay away from it. If there's a job that you hated and it ended and you got fired, there's other opportunities out there, through everything that just ends, the other door opens, and you have to see that. But in that moment, you can't see it, because I get it. You're going through pain, and you're going through heartache, and you're going through anger and rage. But these things are honestly motivating factors. Anytime I've been pissed off at something, dude, it's motivated me to do something else. And when I look back, I'm like, oh my God, thank God for that thing or person, because it motivated me to do this. But if that never happened, I would have never done it. But in that moment, you can't see it. In that moment, it's pain, it's anger, it's rage, and you can't see it. So don't get upset at failures. Know that it will get better. And, again, I keep saying in that moment, because, dude, that moment, so many people can't see that. So many people are like, this is it. But you have to know that it's not it.
So what do you do in that moment? Because like you said, when we get some space and we kind of get, this time between stimulus and response, and we're able to zoom out a little bit, then we can kind of be a bit more objective. But in the moment of rage, I was just watching a TV show, and there was an incident of road rage, and a person just in the moment snapped on this other person. Do you have tricks or techniques or tools to kind of slow down your thinking and your breathing and grounding yourself in that moment?
So going to the example of like the road rage, I think when you're in a specific thing like that, if you're the person who's, feeling the rage, um, I mean, let's just be realistic. So many of us, experience situations with road rage and stuff like that. And if it plays out, it plays out. You can't stop yourself if you're just seeing red in that moment. But after you act on whatever you do, you can reflect on it and go from there. In my personal experience, if I've experienced something that's not as, extreme as being in the moment of road rage, and someone calls me or I get a text that sets me over the edge, I've learned to literally meditate. It's not something that you can, in that second, feel like you want to do, but honestly, in my opinion, it's the best thing to quiet the mind and come into this state of relaxation that not only will take you out of that situation, but will let you have a better thought process, will let you deal with this thing better. Because I think everyone can agree it's not good to deal with anything angry. Nothing good comes from, dealing with a situation in anger. And some people might say, well, you're contradicting yourself. You just said anger is a good thing. I think anger is a good thing as a motivator, because it motivated you to have these new thoughts of, oh, I don't want to do this. But it's not good to act out of anger. It's not good to act out of rage. It's better to act when you're calm and centered. And I know I'm jumping all over the place, but to relate this to myself, I started taking boxing about a year and a half ago now. And, most people, when they think of boxing or MMA, they think of, oh, I got to beat the crap out of this person. I got to get angry. But dude, it's totally the opposite. It's about calming your mind. It's about focusing, and it's about the technique of studying what your target's going to do, what this is going to happen. And that in itself with the boxing has helped me so much with comedy, with dealing with situations of stress, because when you calm that mind and come into that calm state, that's when you can make the best decisions. And I feel like the best thing for the situation.
Man, I love boxing, and you're absolutely right. I remember I was in a past relationship, and there'd be times where we get into an argument, and I would go to the boxing gym, and I would come back so relaxed, so ready to listen and be present, and it just because it requires you to be so. I mean, you got somebody punching back at you. And then, you're in a class and the music is just so stimulating that you're absolutely right. It really is a tool to burn off energy. And I always think of myself as like, I'm kind of like a kid or a dog where if I don't burn off energy every day, then I'm no good at night. And that's where my mind is racing. Like if I don't race my body, then my mind will race. But when I'm racing my body, my mind slows down. So it's like I have to pick one or the other because something's gonna race, and I definitely don't want it to be my mind because then there are times where I feel like I can't get it back.
Yeah, man. Totally. And it's crazy because it's one of those things where there's a quote somewhere. It's almost, I forget what it is. Where like when you speed up, you almost slow down. And so, or wait, okay, just disregard that because that sounded that sounded stupid.
Well, going back to you're talking about your relationship and that you stopped working out and you weren't eating well. And that sounds to me, because I've been there where it was kind of a codependency thing of I was so stressed out about the relationship and what this person thought of me and was feeling, and I just kind of felt like I was on edge the whole time. I didn't feel safe or secure for whatever reason, and I just kind of let everything go. Was that your experience with not working out, or why do you think that you deviated from what you value and prioritize?
Yeah, I with both relationships, the working out suffered, and it was because I was constantly exhausted. I was constantly stressed out. I would talk to like my family about it, and I remember my sisters saying like, "Dude, your cortisol levels are probably jacked up. Like you're probably just so out of it." And it was just like a revolving circle of crap. It was not working out, stressed out, bad sleep, not being motivated to make meals, not being motivated to go to the store to get the good food, eating out, wanting to quote unquote save the relationship. So spending more time with this person, which in result is making things even worse because clearly it's not working out. And so, you know, just like, seeing red and anger with the road rage, when you're in a bad relationship, you can't really see it. Other people can see it, but you can't see it. And even if you can see it, you truly, you know, don't want to admit it, and you don't want to admit fault. And especially if you're married and you have kids, then you're really in it because you're like, okay, well, I got for my kids, and we made a vow and all that stuff. And so just from my own personal experience, um it just becomes a revolving circle, and everything affects everything because the stress from the relationship affects your work performance at work. And then I used to say I had a job, and then my second job was that crappy relationship. I was like, I'd leave work, I would work, and then I'd go to work and try to solve this relationship. And it was just, dude, it was so much. And I remember my dad coming out to visit me, and he's like, dude, what are you doing? And I was like, yeah, what am I doing? Like,
What
yeah, I
uh,
don't know.
so you went from Connecticut to New York and then New York to San Diego. Why San Diego? Why not LA? Or did you try LA or
So, San Diego is where one of my good friends lived, and I came out to visit him. Dude, I'd never been to California before, and I remember it was just like a trip that it was so fun. I had so much fun with him. I got a guest spot at the La Jolla Comedy Store on one of the shows there, and it was just like everything that I wanted to do lined up perfectly. And it was such an amazing time that my experience, I felt, in Connecticut was like done, and it wasn't really going anywhere on the East Coast. And I was like, okay, now it's time to make things happen. Now it's time to like put it into gear. And I wanted to always be close to LA because I knew like LA was where, I was just over the East Coast, I was just over the cold weather and that stuff. And I just felt like it was time to move on. And so it just everything kind of played out perfectly. And I'm like, okay, dude, San Diego's where it's at. And then it literally lined up. I had um, a job offer when I came back out at a company. Uh, a mutual friend of ours was moving out of an apartment, and he's like, "Yeah, you could totally move in there." Um, I was able to land a car through the girl that I was dating at the time. Her dad did stuff with cars, and so I was able to get a car through her. So everything was able to line up, and then I was like, okay, why not? Why would I stay? You know, what this is like perfect synchronicity.
Is there any part of your mental health journey that you haven't shared? We talked about playing video games, exercise, meditation, nutrition, sleep hygiene. We even talked about listening to books and making sure that what we're feeding our minds isn't going to increase our anxiety. Getting off of caffeine, being aware of food allergies. Have you has therapy played a part in your how you've learned how to manage your anxiety?
Yeah, I remember in my 20s going to like different therapists and stuff, and I feel like most therapists wanted to prescribe like Xanax or Klonopin or all these stuffs. And dude, I've tried those before, and I mean, again, you know, with the caffeine, it makes me feel terrible. Well, when I take a Klonopin or a Xanax, I mean, I'm out. You know, I'm like a zombie walking around, and I'm like, okay, I, I can't do this. And I've tried them a handful of times. And so I finally found a guy who was a cognitive behavioral therapist, and he was the first person who, out of like 4 or 5 other therapists that I tried, suggested that I do like these exercises. And so I would like go to the mall and put myself in like uncomfortable situations of like asking questions to people and stuff, nothing like weird, but just stuff that would like provoke anxiety. And it
Give me
was
an
honestly
example, please.
okay, so he would say go into like a Victoria's Secret and say that you're shopping for your girlfriend, even though I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. He's like, say you're shopping for your girlfriend and just be very interested in like what they're selling as merchandise. And you know, most guys don't want to go into a Victoria's Secret or feel uncomfortable or something like that. And so I'd go in there, and he would say, you know, go in, feel the anxiety, and hold it like the conversation until you feel it peak, and then it start to slowly go down. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And then that's when I started stand up around that same time. I would take those same techniques and put them on stage because I'd be very anxious in the beginning, and I would kind of talk about topics until I felt that peak and until it started to go down. So yeah, I mean, shit, I wish I knew that dude's name to give him a shout out. Dude, he helped a lot. Um,
So I
so
love that of staying in a pocket because I think a lot of times we abort mission as it's peaking because we think that there's no way we're coming down. Like we're not going to make it out of this alive, and we don't realize that we're almost to the peak, and then there's going to be a drop, and then peace and tranquility. But we abort before we get there, but if we sit through it, that's where the growth is.
yeah, 100%. And definitely through stand up, I have felt that. I mean, you know, there's so many sets, and I'm sure you've experienced sets where they're just going terrible, and then out of nowhere you win them back. And you're like, holy crap, but it's sticking that out and those awkward feelings and that anxiety and that uncomfortableness. And that goes to just following your passions and your dreams. I mean, so many people don't do things because it's uncomfortable, because they're scared to take that risk. And it's like, dude, if you just did that one thing, your life could be totally different. For example, my current relationship, I adore my girlfriend. I love her so much. I had a crush on her at the gym, and it sounds so silly, but I was so afraid to like go up to her because I don't like to bother people at the gym. I don't want to interrupt someone's workout. And then finally I had hit my point where I'm like, dude, you know what? I'm sick and tired of not doing shit I want to do. What is the worst that happens? And so I just went up to her and I talked to her and I got her number. And literally ever since then, I just asked her out and we've been dating. And it's one of those things that, like, going back to the peak anxiety, There's the anxiety, there's the fear. It's going to peak, it's going to go up, it's going to peak, but let it peak and come back down. And the only way you can do that is by putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and consistently doing that with that discipline and kicking your own ass, as I talked about before, to force yourself to do these uncomfortable things.
Earlier you talked about being in a relationship and, you stopped working out and, the nutrition got offline and even the sleep. And how have you learned to set boundaries in your current relationship? Because I find that that is one of the hardest things for people to do is to say, you know what, that doesn't work for me, or to say, or to kind of stand up or advocate for themselves. How have you struggled with that at all? And if you have, how have you expressed that and worked through that?
So, in the beginning of the relationship, I think most people struggle to, set boundaries and stuff because you don't want to be mean or rude to the person. But the thing is you're not being mean or rude. You're letting this person know who you are as a person. And if someone truly loves you and respects you, they're going to go along with what your needs are. And also on a compatibility level, you're going to see real quick if this person's compatible with you or not. I mean, if you say, "Hey, I don't want to come over tonight," and they're like, "Why not?" And you're like, "Cuz I'm tired." And they're like, "Okay, cool," which is my current girlfriend. That's a good stable relationship. But if you say to your boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever, "Hey, I don't want to come over tonight," and they're like, "Why?" And you're like, "Because I'm tired," and they're like, "You're cheating on me, aren't you?" I don't, something crazy, which I've experienced before. You're like, no, I'm not. I'm just tired. And so, relating back to your question, I feel like, um, 3 months into my relationship with my girlfriend, those chats and talks came up naturally as they would when your schedule shifts, or you're not feeling something, or you're just out of it. And we kind of got that out early. And I'm not gonna lie, it was awkward at first. But again, it's one of those things where, like, dude, life is going to throw you very awkward situations. You have to approach them and go through them. And if you don't, you avoid stuff. And there's nothing worse than having a relationship where you just avoid conflict and everything gets swept under the carpet, because that's when shit just gets really bad and you don't want to address things. And you should feel comfortable addressing your partner with pretty much everything. And that's how I feel with my current girlfriend. I mean, I love her and we're very comfortable sharing, things with each other. And if we do or don't want to do things, and again, that goes to compatibility, respect, and the person should, if you say something, you shouldn't fear it. If they truly love you and respect you, you shouldn't fear what their response is. And if it's like on a friend level, then that's not a good friend. If you can't be honest with your friend, that's not a good friend.
Can you give us an example of how you've conf something you've had to confront in the relationship? And the reason why I'm asking is, it's one thing to say, "Hey, don't avoid the hard conversations in relationships." And but it's another thing because I understand that there are a lot of listeners, and myself included, who there are times where I'm afraid that I might be too aggressive in a confrontation, so then I don't confront at all. And so to hear what exactly your script is, or what a example would be from you of how you have, in a very healthy way, confronted some kind of conflict in your relationship to set a boundary.
So for me, um, I like my alone time. And that's something in my past relationships that I think has always been an issue, going back to people and the girls that I've dated that have been immature, that, their mind goes to like cheating or not wanting to spend time with them or not loving them or something like that. So with my current relationship, I wanted to kind of establish that right away. And I think the conversation was like one night, um, I didn't want to go over there. And, I was just like, "Listen, I don't want you to take this personally, and it's got nothing to do with you, but I just want you to know, like, moving forward. There might be times where I don't want to hang out and I just want to like chill out and watch movies. And we could even like watch movies, which we do sometimes. Like I'll stay at my apartment, she stays at hers, and we'll watch Netflix, but just like consider it like a virtual date, you know, like I'm tired and she's tired and she just wants to be alone. And sometimes too, dude, like we're both into Mario Kart. We'll FaceTime and we'll play Mario Kart through FaceTime. And so like we're both playing online, but we're not with each other. And so like there's other ways to do stuff. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the relationship. People just need their personal space. And there's nothing worse than like someone being dependent on someone else in a relationship for either their happiness or like their comfort level. You as a person, there we go, I'm losing, I can't even talk. You as a person should be comfortable and whole as yourself, and then you come into a relationship and that person complements you, they don't complete you. I think the worst thing in the world is this thought of like, oh, you complete me, and to me that's gross. I'm going off on a tangent here, but to answer that question about like, you know, how to set boundaries and stuff, I think, you know, with my situation, it was just one night I didn't want to hang out and I just explained, you know, I want to just chill and I got work I got to do on my computer. And yeah, my girlfriend was very receptive and cool about it. And there wasn't like any real conflict about that, which right away I was like, this is amazing. Like this is definitely, I know, going to be a good relationship.
What's a book you wish you had read sooner?
Ask and It's Given by Abraham Hicks, which talks about the law of attraction. And also to David Goggins' book. Shit, I should know the name of it. I listened
You
to the
Can't Hurt
Audible.
Me.
Yeah, You Can't Hurt Me. Also that. Yep.
Those are two very powerful books right there. And then is there anything else you want to share with the listeners before we get out of here? About your
Um,
mental health journey, about anything that really helped you to reframe or reduce
just
your anxiety?
be patient with yourself, figure out what works, try different things. As far as exercise go, it could be just stretching, it could be yoga, it could be going on a walk. um, you know, go outside. If you're in an area that doesn't get sunlight, try to, you know, get as much sunlight as you can, and force yourself to do things within your own personal limits. You know, kick your own ass, but be loving and caring to yourself and understanding and patient. And sleep, meditate, eat good, drink plenty of water, and avoid the bullshit.
I love that, man. It sounds like you got a book coming out there, Colton. Um, where can people find you?
So I have my website, coltonharpie.com, Instagram, Colton Harpie. Same with TikTok, Colton Harpie.
Love it. And last thing, I ask this of all my guests, because I always imagine there's one person listening in who may be on the precipice of wanting to end their life. Before you kill yourself, what would you say to them, Colton Harpie?
There's always tomorrow. There's always one more day. And just, you know, we've all had those days that suck, that are miserable, that feel like no one understands. But dude, I'm telling you, I've been there. I feel like many other people have been there. And just wait one more day. Just be patient with yourself. Wait one more day and see how you feel.
Thank you, Colton. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Remember, this podcast is not a substitute for you going to get help, for you calling the 1-800-SUICIDE or 1-800-273-TALKS or any of the international phone numbers that are listed. If you're in Germany, if you're in Taiwan, if you're in Budapest, Sri Lanka, Africa, Nigeria, wherever you are in the world, there are international phone numbers listed for you. You can talk, chat, text. There are financial resources also listed in the show notes. You can always go to thrivewithleo.com for one-on-one coaching with yours truly. Let's get to tomorrow together. Thank you so much, Colton.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.